Hey y'all, I'm CQ, and this is Spirit Gumbo, the podcast where we stir the spiritual pot with truth, spice, and sass. In today's episode, we're talking about those negative gremlins in our heads, the voices we carry, where they come from, and how we start taking back the narrative. We'll start with a gumbo bite. I have a gremlin problem. Then it's story time with CQ, your gremlin or mine. After that, we'll move into the main theme, rewriting the voices we inherited, followed by a tarot truth bomb, a little spirit side-eye, the inner mean girl, and close with a reflection on choice, awareness, and reclaiming the voice we choose to believe. So, grab your candle, sip your tea, and let's get into it. This ain't just talk. This is Spirit Gumbo with CQ. Alright, now, here's your gumbo bite for today. Something short and spicy to stir into your soul. Have you ever heard this voice in your head? Especially when you're dealing with unexpected stress or when you're trying something new? Everyone knows you're a fraud and you really don't know what you're doing. This is happening because you're a failure and you'll never be good enough. You're being punished because you're not a good person. Everyone else has this figured out. What's wrong with you? If you mess this up, it'll just prove what you already know about yourself. And my personal favorite, you're stupid and you'll never be good enough. If these sentences ring true for you, I want you to know you're not alone. Some of us may be more prone to that gremlin voice than others, but I think it's safe to say we've all experienced that voice from time to time. Some people say it's the ego. Some say it's a demon. Personally, I think it's the voice that keeps us trapped in a very real story. One that shows up the moment fear enters the room. And fear has this weird way of doing that. Maybe your car breaks down and suddenly you're stressed about where the money is going to come from to fix it. Fear shows up, but instead of saying, "Hi, I'm Fear," it says, "This is all your fault. You should have seen this coming." That gremlin voice is mean. It's nasty. And it wants to keep you trapped in a negative narrative because honestly, that's the only way it knows how to keep you safe. Fear, anxiety, and stress are part of our body's design. They exist to protect us. Think about something like walking off of a cliff. Our bodies and minds are hardwired to send signals that say, "Stop!" But in today's world, that cliff looks different. It's a broken down car, paying rent on time, getting groceries. So our brains are still trying to keep us safe. They're just doing it in a negative pattern instead of a helpful one. Hi, my name is CQ, and my gremlins need taming. Because the first step in rewriting that voice is recognizing when and how it shows up. Now, take that with you and stir wisely. Story time with CQ, your gremlin or mine. So, I'm going to be really honest here. It doesn't matter how much you think you've got your gremlins tamed and staying in their lane. They will cause chaos if you let them. While I was moving into scripting story time, I already had a clear idea of what I wanted to talk about. And then my gremlins popped up like, you've already said that in past episodes. They're not going to want to hear this again. I actually caught myself thinking about going back through my old scripts to see if I'd said it before, and then I pulled myself back. Why? Because that would have taken time away from what I'm actually trying to do, which is scripting. Welcome to a day in my life. If you're new here, hi, my name is CQ, and I internalize everything. I also have anxiety, so not only does everything need a plan, it needs a backup to the backup to the backup. Honestly, it gets freaking exhausting living in my head. That's what I would be saying today if I hadn't taken the time to learn how to tame my own gremlins. Growing up in the time period I did, there were no anti-bullying campaigns. Life was life, and kids were kids. And kids can be mean. They can be cruel. I was teased a lot, not just by kids at school, but by some of my own family members too. I was called fat. I was called ugly. I was called many other names. And if I'm being honest, I'm sure I teased others too. I was also a very sensitive child. Some of that was probably just my personality, and some of it was the trauma I lived through growing up. Either way, I internalized those voices. The ones that told me I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't play with them because of whatever they decided was wrong with me that day. Before we go any further, I want to get this out of the way. This isn't about revisiting old conversations or assigning blame. It's about naming the voices we carry and choosing which ones we keep and which ones we get to redefine. I was called a drama queen. You know, that familiar shorthand people use when they don't want to sit with someone else's feelings. It's also something adults say when kids struggle to express emotions. They cry, they stomp their feet, they pout, they get labeled dramatic. And guess what? Ya girl over here can absolutely be a drama queen. Honestly, there are times in my life when I get really dramatic, especially with the universe. The universe will nudge me in a direction I don't want to go, and I'll sigh, I'll pout, I'll rant a little, and then do the thing anyway. And I'll look up at the universe and say, I'm going to do it. I just got to be dramatic about it first. Sorry. Went off on a dramatic rant there for a second. What were we talking about? I'm kidding. My problem was that I internalized all of those voices to the point where they took over. My voice became the voice of me being a drama queen, ugly, stupid. The voice that was supposed to keep me safe turned into a gremlin. I really started paying attention to the way I talked to myself several years ago when I began doing my own inner work. And of course, as I was learning things, I started teaching them to my teenager. Because as a mom, I've told her I'd much rather she does the work now than wake up one day in her 40s and have to start it then. One of my favorite things to say during stressful moments back then was, "What is this trying to teach me?" instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" That was when I was just starting to rewire my gremlins. One day, I was dealing with some really stressful stuff. I was washing dishes, ranting, being all dramatic and everything, when my daughter walks up to me and says, "So, what is this trying to teach you?" Now, my first thought was to smack her for being a brat, but we don't do that here. My second thought was, oh, she's actually listening. And in that moment, I knew I needed to keep doing my own inner work because someone else was watching how I handled my gremlins. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where those gremlins came from. If we stay stuck in the blame game, nothing is going to change. What does matter is noticing them, offering a little compassion for how they were trying to keep us safe, and then rewiring them. Because those voices had a job once, and now it's time to reclaim them. I know I'm doing my work because when I let something slip, like I'm stupid or I'm not good enough, I get corrected. Not just by myself, but by my partner and my kid. And I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite sayings from when I was a kid, just slightly modified for where I am now. I know I'm somebody because the universe doesn't make junk. Rewriting the voices we inherited. Negative thinking. As we move into the main theme, I want to pull the lens way out for a moment and clarify something. This isn't just about the obvious names we call ourselves. I know some of you are sitting there thinking, well, I don't call myself stupid. And if that's you, congratulations. But before you start celebrating, let me ask you a few questions. How do you talk to yourself about money? Do you say things like, I can't afford that. I never have enough money. I'm never going to get ahead. What about the way you talk about your environment? Do you catch yourself saying things like, why is that guy being such an idiot while driving? Ugh, I hate this weather. I hate where I live. All of that is negative thinking, and that's what we're addressing today. Negative self-talk keeps us locked in negative thought patterns. It feeds fear, anxiety, and stress. And it keeps us stuck in a loop where we're not really happy. I also want to clarify something else. Sometimes those gremlins weren't created by what was said to us, or even by how we interpreted what was said. Sometimes they were created by our internal response to the environment we grew up in. There is a common story in psychology about two brothers who grew up in a household with alcoholics. One brother became an alcoholic, and the other never touches alcohol. It's the whole nature versus nurture idea. What I'm getting at is this. You didn't have to be called stupid every day growing up to end up with a "you're so stupid" gremlin. And lastly, I want to re-stress this. This isn't about blaming or shaming anyone else in our personal narratives. This is about noticing patterns and deciding what we can do to rewrite them. There's a laundry list of reasons why we end up with these gremlins. Sometimes we know exactly where they came from, and sometimes we don't. But if we get caught up in identifying the who, the what, the when, and the where, we lose the whole why. I'm grown up enough to know that it doesn't actually matter where my gremlins came from. What matters is that it's my responsibility to change them and reclaim them. Negative bias. In the movie Pretty Woman, there's a scene between Vivian and Edward where Vivian is talking about her low self-esteem. Vivian says, "People put you down enough, you start to believe it." Edward replies, "I think you are a very bright, very special woman." And Vivian says, "The bad stuff is easier to believe. You ever notice that? That line about the bad stuff being easier to believe has always stayed with me. And there's actually a scientific name for it. It's called negative bias. Negative bias is where the brain prioritizes negative information for survival, making it faster to learn from bad experiences. This mental habit can be reinforced by low self-esteem, past trauma, or, just like in Pretty Woman, the internalization of other people's harsh criticism, which is why when we start to rewire our gremlins, it can feel uncomfortable, disorienting, and it can even bring up fear. I remember when I first started trying to tame mine, it felt like almost every single thought I had was negative. I know, I'm being dramatic. But honestly, it took a long time. And when I say a long time, you might be wondering, how long is long? Months, if not a year or so, of consciously choosing to change my internal dialogue. It wasn't easy. And if we're being honest, I still catch myself every now and then slipping back into the spiral. And speaking of spirals, that's the real problem with negative gremlins. They keep the spiral going. It's not just one thought. It's one thought that turns into another and another and another. I can remember times when something bad would happen, like a flat tire. Simple, right? Most people would fix the tire and be on their way. Not me. That flat tire would turn into a full-on gremlin chorus, telling me I wasn't good enough, that it was my fault. Yes, for a flat tire, that I was being punished, and that spiral wouldn't last just a day or two. Sometimes it stayed with me for weeks, if not months. Those spirals of negative gremlins eventually created anxiety. My brain translated not good enough into I'm not in control. And when you don't feel in control, you create it. How? By having a backup to the backup to the backup. That was a snapshot of what it was like living in my head every single day. It wasn't pretty, and it definitely wasn't helpful. Now that my gremlins are more tamed, my head is a lot quieter, a lot less chaotic. I don't live in constant plans and backups anymore. Do I still structure my days? Yes. Do I still get annoyed when side quests pop up? Absolutely. What I don't do anymore is punish myself with negative gremlins. I don't shame myself, I don't guilt myself, and I don't give them control. Most of the time, I just tell them to F off. Interrupting the gremlin loop. How we start taking back the narrative is simple on paper and sometimes hard in practice. And no, I'm not being dramatic here. Recognition is the first step, like we talked about earlier. And if you're having a hard time figuring out whether something is negative or not, use what I like to call the best friend test. Simply ask yourself, would I say that to my best friend or to someone I love? If the answer is no, then why in the heck are you saying it to yourself? So, now that we can recognize where we're speaking negatively to ourselves, here's a little fun fact for you moving forward. It takes 3 positive thoughts to replace 1 negative one. For example, if I'm working on financial negative self-talk and I catch myself saying, I never have enough money, I would replace it with, I am a money magnet. I create abundance and prosperity. I am financially secure. When I talk to clients about negative self-talk, I always suggest keeping affirmations simple for the area you're working on. By making the conscious choice to have them handy and ready, you're already rewiring the gremlins. The next two things, I know, I recommend them a lot, and there's a reason for that. First, meditation. Slowing down, even for just 15 minutes a day, helps your system decompress and de-stress. A calmer you is better at recognizing, responding to, and replacing negative gremlins. Second, breath work. Simple box breathing helps calm the nervous system. Here's how to do it. Start by sitting upright and exhaling all of the air out of your lungs. Then inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 4. Hold again for a count of 4. Repeat this cycle for 4 to 5 minutes or any time you need to feel more grounded. And as always, give yourself some grace. Your gremlins didn't grow overnight. They formed over years, and it's going to take time to rewire those thought patterns. Celebrate every moment you notice them getting quieter. One day, you'll be like me, going through a stressful moment and suddenly realizing how quiet it is in your head. Some days, I really miss those guys. No, I really don't. I don't know what your gremlins tell you, but I know what mine say. And I know I get to choose whether I believe them. The gremlin doesn't disappear when you notice it, but it loses its power when you stop mistaking it for truth. Pay attention to the voice that shows up under stress. That's not who you are. That's what you learned. It's time for a Tarot Truth Bomb, where Spirit speaks through the cards, and I don't sugarcoat the message. As I'm shuffling the cards, I want you to ask yourself, where in my life do I hear the gremlin voice the loudest? What story am I telling myself right now that keeps me stuck in a negative loop? Whose voice might I be carrying that was never truly mine? Where have I been reacting instead of responding? And what language am I using with myself in those moments? What would change if I questioned the gremlin instead of automatically believing it? All right, today's card is the Page of Pentacles. The Page of Pentacles is the quiet student standing at the edge of something new. Curious, hopeful, a little unsure but willing. And that's exactly where the gremlins like to show up. Because every time you try to learn something new, build something new, or become someone new, the old voices get loud. You're not ready. You don't know enough. Who do you think you are? But the page doesn't argue with the voices. The page just keeps studying, keeps practicing, keeps planting seeds. Not because the page already knows everything, but because growth belongs to the ones who are willing to be beginners. And every skill, every dream, every new version of you starts exactly there. Spirit said what it said. Spirit didn't stutter. Take it in, sit with it, and do what you will with it. All right, now it's time for a spirit side eye, because some of y'all are out here playing with energy like karma won't slap you in the back of the head. This spirit side eye is for the way we joke about being terrible human beings like it's a personality trait. Seriously, how many times a day do you say something similar to the following? I'm such an idiot. I'm so stupid. Bitch, get it together. Listen, come here. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Our brains, our beautiful brains, cannot differentiate between us joking and when we're serious. So when we use I statements that are full of negatives, our brain starts believing them. I'm bringing this up because you have no idea how many times I'll be doing something and say out loud, "You're so stupid." I know I'm not stupid. But my brain, well, she's listening. Worse than that, she believes me when I say it, 'cause why would I lie to her? Society also reinforces these statements. Think about the movie Mean Girls. One of its famous lines is, "Get in, loser, we're going shopping." This is just one of many examples where we're being programmed to talk to ourselves in this negative mean girl voice. It's time to change the narrative. So yeah, maybe it's time we kick the inner mean girl out of the car. And maybe stop letting the gremlins run the group chat in our heads. That was your spirit side eye. Now go sage your space and mind your magical business. At the end of the day, the voices in our heads didn't appear out of nowhere. They were learned. And if something can be learned, it can also be rewritten. Will it take time? Absolutely. It took time to create the gremlins. It will take time to tame them. Remember, you're not looking for perfection. You're looking for progress. The gremlin may show up from time to time, but it doesn't get the final say. That part belongs to you. That's it for today's brew. If something stirred your soul, stirred your sass, or made you side-eye your life choices in the best way possible, pass it on. And don't forget to follow, rate, and share your thoughts on any of our socials. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirit Gumbo. Next time, we're taking this conversation a step further, because once you start taming the gremlins in your own head, you begin to realize something important. You have a lot more power than you've been led to believe, and a lot more ability to change your world. Until next time, this ain't just talk. This is Spirit Gumbo with CQ.